Got
Me
a,
too.
I got a youth rally coming up, and I keep getting more people registering. Yeah, I keep getting more and more people keep registering. So now we're up to like 125. I had to turn off the QR code. So if people
Oh,
want
really?
to register, if people want, well, yeah, I can't like we have the food, so like I only have so much to feed so many people. Bum, ba-dum, ba-dum.
It's kind of one of those. Man, it's really good, but also really challenging when you just keep having people sign up. It's like I'm really glad you're signing up, but man, when is the retreat
The retreat.
this weekend? The youth rally. Sorry,
This
this coming weekend.
Sunday. This coming Sunday. Sorry. You always ask me a question right as Lauren texted me or something. I was looking on. I kind of feel bad, but whenever I see somebody post on Facebook like, "Hey, is anyone listening to any good podcasts lately?" I always go, "Hey, Behind the Beers. That's a good one. I like that one."
That's funny. I don't feel bad.
And then Lauren always like goes and likes it, which is always nice. She's sweetie pie. But it's just like, I mean, I think it's a good podcast. Just saying.
And I'm
don't
not
have the-
biased at all.
Film quality of. I was watching some more of the Sunday Cool podcast, and boy, when you really when you want to do an effort, like when you have video production efforts and things like that, you can do like a whole lot. You can do a whole lot more. Like they have the cameras and their mics and everything set up in a better way. Like our audio, I think, is pretty good. I mean, our camera quality is like okay. We don't have transitions or anything though, so like we don't do any post editing. Everyone just gets the raw audio.
That's right. What you
of
see
our
is what you get.
That's right.
I thought about
Too
coming up
busy.
with little stings and things like, a behind the beards moment.
Right? Just got time for that.
Yeah, not me. We would need a producer. I guess KT's not going to come be our producer.
No, he's big time. He's a professional whatever at Shiloh. He does all. That guy's busy. I don't even know if we can get him back on the show. We should get him on the show about college ministry or whatever. That would be good.
Yeah, he's good to talk to.
He was good. I need to have Adam back on the show too from Baco.
Mhm.
He was a good guest.
Oh yeah, we had
were
him
gone.
on while we were at Universal. That's right. Speaking of, October 31st, we are heading on a
Halloween.
cruise. So
Man,
we'll be
I'm
gone
jealous.
for a week. We are finally getting to celebrate our 25th wedding anniversary. So
Congratulations.
June, July.
I'm gonna go on a
September.
cruise so bad. I've never been on one. They always look fun. There's no frisbee golf on a cruise though.
Well, you could do an object course.
It's true. And they
with the
do make
shark.
those. Have you seen they make mini baskets for those minis now?
Oh,
So
I
you
haven't
can
seen that.
so you can set up mini courses in your house or whatever, or you can play it in your house.
Yeah, that doesn't sound fun at all. Just personally.
Well, I think it sounds fun.
Okay. Is it like the little?
I think it'd be fun to play church froth, church disc golf.
Is it for like the mini marker discs or for the little like?
No, for like the mini marker
quarter-sized
discs,
ones. Yeah. Okay. Because you've seen those little quarter-sized discs that supposedly like fly like crazy. Have you seen those?
You know, I have seen those.
Till we're all growing a beard. A man's face should never be bare. We just want some facial hair. We're anticipating, yeah, everyone's waiting for a beard.
Well, good morning, everybody. This is Behind the Beards. And a little background music.
You wanted some background music. I was just trying to help us.
It just so caught me off guard. I'm like, man, is there something on my computer playing? Well, here on Behind the Beards, we do our best to distract one another as we pull back the curtain and try to reveal what goes on in the hearts and minds of your church and ministry leaders. I'm Joshua Fowler, preaching minister in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Whoop, whoop.
Aaron Partlow, youth minister in Longview, Texas.
Woo-hoo.
Man,
they have those background musics.
They do have this. Yeah, it's a new feature of the update. It's pretty nice.
Just trying to give us like a little intensity for that opener. It's good.
Well, man, it was good to see you, Aaron. Aaron went down. I came up to Natchitoches. Played a little round of golf at Northwestern State.
Not Nacogdoches.
Not Nacogdoches.
Which everyone seems to think that I like missaid Nacogdoches. And I was like, no, it's a different place. We went to a different place.
Well, it's kind of one of the things of being in Texas, because when you live in Texas, everyone assumes that if you're going somewhere, you're talking about some place in Texas.
That's true. That's actually very true.
If you take a trip to Paris, they're going to assume you're going to Paris, Texas, not Paris, France.
Been there, seen that Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
Impressive.
But it's a nice little course out there in Northwestern State.
It was
fun. Stumbled on a car show. Saw some sweet old rides.
Mm-hmm.
Waited too long for halfway decent food, but
for overpriced halfway. I don't know if the food was good or if I was just starving.
Yeah, I would been waiting for a little while.
Limped out of that restaurant. Do you want a soda or a water? I don't know. Look at these prices. You tell me. Water.
$5.95 for flavored water. I'll take the free non-flavored water. I think we're gonna get to go.
It was flavored.
Go play a couple of courses that I've never been on before this weekend with a friend of mine. So we're looking forward to
Saturday. I can make the drive.
Saturday, yeah, come on. We're gonna drive out to Mandeville and play Pelican Park, and then drive up to outside of the Hammond area and play a little course. So it's gonna be a day full. My wife is driving to Dallas. My son's got his first bowling tournament of the year for Oklahoma Christian. So they're going to be in Dallas, and she's going to drive up there to see him for the weekend.
Nice.
Starting route to Pelican Park.
It's only 5 hours.
Head northwest on Pine.
5 hours and 50 minutes. Easy drive.
That's it from you?
That's right. That's it.
It's like an hour and a half for me, but maybe it takes you down a different route. Very nice. What's new in your world?
We've just been crazy busy. It's just like, I don't know, like it's just been really, really, really busy. Got a lot of stuff going on. Just always seems like you get 1 week done and you've just got the next week and you got a lot going on and a lot of stuff done. We do youth group every other Sunday, and Lauren and I, for the first time in our ministry career, have joined a small group of our own. And so we are going as just young adult Christians with a 4-year-old boy. And it was a lot of fun. It was really good for us. It was some good conversation. I wasn't the youth minister. I was just like Aaron.
Right.
And a lot of those people don't even like. What's cool about Pine Tree is it's big enough that like, if you're not maybe involved in our youth ministry, you probably don't know me super well. And so like it was a good place for me to be able to go and just be me, and learn how to like socialize with adults, since I never do that. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that is fun, and not very common to find that kind of a venue to be able to just show up as a dude
and not have to like prep or do anything. Like, I wasn't in charge of anything. Like, we brought cinnamon rolls, and that was the most work that we put into it. So we're gonna do that every other Sunday. So we have youth group second and fourth, and then first and third Sunday of the month, Lauren and I will be in the small group. So, and it's only like 15 minutes from our house, so it's not even like, can't even be like, oh, I gotta drive an hour to get to it. So it's really good. It's really good. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, it is really good. Finding those places where you can just kind of connect as an individual. It's really challenging. I think and I'm not saying it's not challenging for everybody. I think it is a challenging place to be for everyone. But the more visible your role is at the church, then the harder it becomes to find those places. So
as much as I think some people don't realize this, but as difficult as it is for other people to not allow their job to get in the way of their personal faith and their personal connection with the church body, right. Sometimes like a minister's job stops them from being able to actually plug in as a member of their own church body as well. So yeah, Dad, my dad was saying here there's 5 Sundays in October, and I get that. We do a 5th Sunday potluck every 5th Sunday, so I don't have to worry about that.
5th Sunday potluck.
So 1st and 3rd small group, 2nd and 4th youth group, 5th church potluck.
Can't go wrong with a church potluck, can you? Well, you can. Depends on how long that food's been sitting out sometimes, right? We've
been doing some good stuff. Like we did this last one. I pulled up to church. I didn't know what was going on. We have this whole committee that's in charge of this 5th Sunday potluck, right? And I pull up to the church, and I'm like, is the church, what's going on? And why does it smell so good? And they've got 3 of these giant trailer smokers that they have been smoking brisket and turkey and all sorts of stuff on, from last night all the way through the night, and also you pull up to church and you just smell the barbecue, and it's slow cooking, and it smells so good. So I don't know. These potlucks are done a little bit I guess our church provides the main course, and everyone else brings salads and sides, and there's some people who bring pizza for the kiddos and stuff like that. So
Jonathan said it's important to watch who brings what, right?
That's right. I did mistake a tuna sandwich it was a Spam sandwich, and I thought it was tuna, and I bit into it, and I was like, why does this taste so weird? And
you confused Spam for tuna?
Well, because it was he blended it up or whatever.
Oh, okay.
And when you're grabbing a white bread sandwich and you look at it real quick because you're in the potluck line, it looked like tuna, but it was Spam.
So if you pick it up and look at it and it's not what you think it is, you just put it back down on the plate, or do you put it on your plate and just throw it away?
Well, I was trying to pretend like I froze there, so I didn't have to answer the question. I am a strict, if you touch it, it goes on your plate kind of
If you touch it, it goes on your plate, yeah.
And I am also a strict, I will try anything, so I will, even if it's something that I know I'm not going to like, I will try it. So
that's true. I mean, I've put some, I don't want to say some weird things, but some different things that you probably never tried before when you come to visit. So, and you've never turned down the opportunity to try new food. So,
I think everything weird that you've offered me has not been weird at all.
Yeah, well, by weird I just mean things you haven't had before.
Oh yeah. Lauren and I have a very, very interesting menu palette. A lot of times people are I think we are those people that people don't want to eat at our house because they don't know what they're going to get. They're going to be like, we're having what? And I'm like, yeah, it's this. It's really good. And they're like, we just have meatloaf? Like, what are you doing?
It could be Thai, it could be Indian, it could be Asian. You just never know.
Oh,
right?
Jonathan, we have crawdads in Oregon, not crawfish, and I have cleaned them out quite a bit. I do eat crawdads quite a bit.
Yeah. Don't say crawdads, dude. You can't say
I'm
crawdads.
I'm from Oregon. I can say that. That's what we call them, crawdads, not crawfish.
You need to cook them with some good Cajun seasoning.
I'm not in the bayou.
I remember the first time I took my jambalaya pot up to Oklahoma for
You can be wrong.
for Christmas one year, and I made everybody jambalaya, and like Heather's brother was like, "Man, I don't know." I was like, "What's in it?" I was like, "Well, what do you think is in it?" And I was like, "It's rice and sausage and pork and chicken and seasonings and some onions and celery and." He's like, "Oh, I'll give that a shot." And it's like, "Yeah." I was like, "What'd you think was in it?" He goes, "Well, I just knew it was a traditional Louisiana dish, so I didn't know what was in it." I was like it's not all that weird, man. Come on.
I know, right? I think people get jambalaya confused with gumbo, and gumbo for some people can be intimidating.
Yeah, and of course, you see it on the movies and all of that. So there's some, I think, preconceived notions that come in. Plus, everybody thinks that everybody in Louisiana just eats roadkill, whatever they can scrounge up, and just throw it in a soup, and that's gumbo,
Yeah,
right?
sneak gators into everything.
Sneak it in, that's right.
Dude, I will say we have a new restaurant that opened up here, and it's always been like a Cajun kind of themed restaurant here, and they do have on their menu is fried gator, and it was really good.
Yeah, it is good. When we're looking at
That was 17 minutes of just nothing.
it was 10 minutes, but
It's
okay,
true.
whatever. And we were almost there. Like we had like a really good transition point when they started talking
I'm
about
sorry.
food. No,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
okay. Because I'll talk about food for a long time.
That's right.
We are going to talk about the church today. It's one of the things that's kind of been on my mind as I've sent, two kids off to college and one kid off to the military. You have this. You want your kids to understand the importance of church life, and but we're living in this world that's just so like individualistic.
Mm-hmm.
And you see, like from a worldly standpoint, this idea of you just need to be yourself. You do what you need to do, and that's kind of okay, and everybody else just needs to be okay with that. And then we were getting some of these messages coming in from other, sources that claim to be Christian, that will kind of say, well, what kind of organized religion is kind of a thing of the past.
Right.
The only thing that's really important is your personal relationship with Jesus. You don't really need the church. You don't need that kind of organization. You just need to know who you are when it comes to Jesus. And and so we're sending our kids out into this world, and there's also adults that are kind of coming to this as well. COVID has given us a whole different, scenario of, do I really need the church if I can just catch them on TV? I can take the Lord's Supper here on Sunday, and I can watch them on TV, and that's good enough. I get my teaching and get my.
It is. I would say this is also one of those biggest. I think this is one of the biggest concerns. Like a lot of parents have for their teenagers when they're graduating high school. But I also don't feel like they worry about it until about 3 or 4 months after they are about to graduate. It's like it doesn't realize to them that I've had all these years to instill the importance and to plug in and to figure out this is like an important aspect of their life that I want them to know. But it waits till like they're about to graduate when they have the most senioritis. They're most want to get out of the house and be independent to be like, no, but this is important. And youth minister, you have to really fix them. Like, what are you going to do for them after they get out of high school, And I'm like, no, what are you going to do for them? What have you been teaching them? What have you been, telling them of what importance is? And I would agree. I feel like we live in a state where, like, people don't, like, there's not a pull to be plugged in fully to a church. That a church is an accessory to your life and not like something of real importance.
Yeah.
That, and it's been this way for a while, where we've just struggled to get people to see the importance of being plugged into a church. And it might be because maybe the church didn't do a good job as a whole to get people to plug in and to offer things of value, that we've been lazy with what we've offered, or not even that we offered, but how we build community. Maybe it's, a big pull of culture moving its way into church as well. But there's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons like why we need to go to church. But when you try to talk about, and why you try to digest and kind of get through, like, why do people not go to church? It seems like, and even COVID made it really relevant for me, that it's a lot of times like there's a lot of work just to get people to like not be lazy and to come show up.
Mm-hmm.
That was spent like 2 years, right, in COVID, like just getting people not to be lazy and just be a number on a screen. Like, hey, we know we have a set amount of members. Why is our view count, just low even?
Right.
Kind of a thing. Like, there's just like this engagement that's easy to get lost. And I would say that goes even further. And this is what I try. This is like something that I firmly believe. Like, I think just walking in and going to a church on Sundays, we say this all the time, like, just being a bench warmer isn't enough. Right.
Right.
But sometimes it's hard just to even get like people to do that.
Yeah. And, you made a point that this has been going on for a while, and this is not a new phenomenon.
No, not at all.
I think we've just come up with newer ways to express it.
Yeah.
And more innovative ways of making people feel like they're connected to the body when they're really maybe not quite as connected as they think they are, because of they have the ability to do one thing, but they've chosen to do another because it's easier.
Right.
And we have these pendulum swings, like we do with so many other things, that I think that's happened here. And I think one of the things that's caused a lot of people with a Christian background to move into this I don't need organized religion kind of a mentality is that because of the way that we've viewed church attendance for a lot of generations. Like, it's almost like, hey, you got to show up, you got to punch your time card, and the first question St. Peter's going to ask you at the pearly gates is, were you baptized? And the second one is, show me your attendance record.
That's right.
And like, that's somehow going to be your entry into heaven is, we were, every time the doors were open, we were there. And I was like, what? That's awesome. But that doesn't make you more holy.
Right.
And we would even like, it's like we completely lost track of why we were doing the things that we were doing. And I remember having a conversation with someone. When we would have our bilingual service, we would have church, and then we would eat lunch, have a potluck. And then it was, as everybody was cleaning up, someone came up to me and said, hey, are we going to have a devotional? I'm like, for what?
Right.
It was like, well, we're not having services tonight. It was like, no, we're not having services tonight. It was like, well, we need to have another church service before everybody leaves. Otherwise, we're going to lose everybody. I'm like, for what? It's like, well, we've always done church, eat church. It's like, but for what reason? It was like, we have a room full of people. Half of them speak English. Half of them speak Spanish. They're sharing tables. They're eating together. They're learning to communicate with one another. And you want me to stop this so that the same people that just heard me speak for 25 minutes can hear me speak for 5 more?
Right.
And we can sing one more song that everybody kind of knows, but not really knows. But we got to do it in English and in Spanish. Otherwise, we isolate half the people here. was like, look around. I mean, this is worship. I mean, fellowship is an act of worship. So are we just doing it so we can punch a time card and say that, hey, we went to 2 church services this Sunday? Or have we really grasped what it means to be God's people in this place? And so I think because we had that kind of a mindset, there's another generation that's gone, well, that's messed up. And it is a little messed up. But also to take this big swing to the other side that says, I don't need organized religion. It's just about me and Jesus.
Right.
That's an equal problem on the other side of the fence,
So there's a lot of like pinpoint kind of conversations that we can have when we talk about this. We can talk about like the idea of just like if as an adult, like are you involved in a congregation? Like how well are you plugged in? Are you just a pew warmer? Do you just show up whenever it is? Is it something that's a part of your life? Or are we talking about like, if you're a college age student and are you, again, are you just warming the seats at whatever random church you show up at? I think one of the most I remember this when I was younger. Somebody told me, I don't even remember who it was, but it was like at my graduation thing at the church, and somebody took me aside and they said, listen, I will tell you right now, this will be the hardest thing for you to do, and it'll be the easiest thing for you to ignore. But when you go to college, you need to place membership at a church. Like, don't just go and don't just like sit in the pew and just like and say like, oh yeah, this is the church I go to, but go and place membership. Because when you place membership, you're saying like, I'm affiliating with this church. There's like something about your home church when you grow up, like especially like Pine Tree, like these kids, like they know every nook and cranny of the church, right? They know the children's ministry left and right because they grew up and they went through it. They know some of the senior adults and everything like that. But then some of these kids go off to college. They don't place membership at a church. They just kind of like go and attend. And it becomes like this place that like you don't know like super well. Like this is my church, but I don't feel like I can go and like open a closet door and look in there.
Yeah, right.
Like if I go to Oregon City, I know where everything is, and I feel comfortable. I haven't been there in years. I have not been a member at Oregon City Church of Christ for forever, but I know where everything is. Because I grew up. I was a part of that congregation. I was a part of that body. I know where things are at Pine Tree. I still know where things are at Central. I haven't been there in almost 2 years now, but it's because I've been a part of that congregation and that kind of stuff. So it's like I feel like that's like where you cross that line of like I'm a part of this church. And so like for young college kids to go and to actually place membership, well, that then opens it up and says like, I want to get to know other members of this body. I want them to come and walk alongside me in my faith, and I want to be involved in this, to be an actual part of my life and not just a place that I go on Sunday morning.
Yeah. And I don't think your church attendance is not going to be a condition of your salvation.
Yes. Yeah.
However, the fact that we go to church has a lot to do with our salvation. And, so when they ask the question, why do we need to go to church?
Right.
If it's not going to keep me out of heaven, it's not going to get me into heaven. What's the point? Mm-hmm. And I think you start with something. At least in my mind, I start with this idea or this understanding that we were created to live in community. And I think the first thing we have to do is confront the lie that Satan has used Christian sources to tell us, which is, hey, your personal relationship with Jesus is the only thing that really matters. I challenge people all the time to go through and show me the scriptures that talk about a personal relationship with Jesus that's outside of the context of life in the community of his people. You can find the relationship language. You can find the kind of connection that we have there. But what you find that always is that comes in a conversation where you have the head, you have the body, you have the church as the bride of Christ. You have the body of people, your body as a temple. That's not my personal body. He's talking about the church, as it relates to that community.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we were created for that. And, the first thing that God says after he creates Adam and puts him in the garden is, it is not good for a man to be alone.
Right.
So immediately he begins to create for him a community that he can live within. And so I think we start with helping our children understand that this is how we were created. This is what we were created for. And it's not that I'm not saying you have to go to church, but what I am saying is if you're a Christian, you should feel this need to go and be a part of the body of Christ.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of like when Paul talks about, works. That our works don't save us, but our works are a reflection of like as a product. It's the fruit of our faith and our belief.
Show me faith without works, and I'll show you a faith that's dead. Right?
That's right. Yeah. And it's like it's if you want, I feel like if you want like a true depth. Okay, so I feel like for me, like, why should we go to church? We should go to church because, one, we should have a longing for mentors and for other people to walk alongside us, right? And at the same time, we also should have a longing to mentor others, right? And walk alongside those who are younger than us. Like, we should want to be around other people, other Christians, other people who are believers and things like that. Like, there is a yearning for that. We should also be friends with people in our church. Like, if your friend group if you don't have a friend group that's based out of your church, then you might really kind of like start to ponder that and think about that, because like we should be friends with people in our church as well, and do things outside of the church with people in the church, kind of a thing. I think there's a depth to our faith that says, like, no, I want to be a part of this community. Also, I mean, we can just easily say this right now, right? Like, Jesus founded and created the church. Like, there's got to be something of worth or value if Jesus was like, hey, by the way, before I leave, I'm going to establish this church.
Right.
Like, this is important. I'm going to establish this. This is one of the last things I'm going to do. And so it's like for people to be like, well, church is not that important. I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's kind of a big deal. Like, there's a lot of things that Jesus did and said, and he was like, these things are important.
Yeah. And the metaphors that are used, right? I mean, the church is the body of Christ.
Right. Yeah.
And so you can't have one without the other. And I think one of the, I wish I could remember who it was I was listening to, but he was talking and he said, look, I understand you've been hurt by the church. You've been hurt by Christians, but you can't throw Jesus away because some people have caused you injury. And when you look at who Jesus is, you can't have a relationship with Jesus. You can't separate the head from the body. They come as a package, and we have to understand that we're going to find flawed communities. We're going to find flawed individuals because that's all they have to work with. I mean, heaven knows I've made my share of mistakes. I've probably offended people. I've probably hurt people. It was completely unintentional. But I know that I have said things that have caused people harm. And I do my best to make those things right. I know my personality doesn't strike people in a positive way all the time. And when people come and say, man, I feel like you're always mad at me. And I say, look, I'm really sorry. I'm not. And I'm going to do my best to make that better, because I don't want to push anyone away from that. But I also want them to understand that we're just people doing our best to live the way God has called us to live. But when someone, in that body harms me, I can't just put all of it away.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I put all of it away, I'm saying I'm putting Jesus away too. And so, there's this understanding that we have to come to that says, if I want to be a part of Jesus, if I want to be a part of who he's called me to be, then this is part of that life that kind of comes with us.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is what Jesus came to establish. And what am I saying then? Like you said a second ago, if I say, I want that, but I don't want what Jesus created. I don't want what Jesus came to build here.
Right.
I want to skip over that part. Like it just, it doesn't work that way. I think there is another element that we have to ask is, if I'm not feeling connected when I go to church, is it the church's obligation to make me feel connected? Or is it my obligation to show up at a place and say, how can I be a proactive member of this body that's here? What do I have to offer?
Man, we read that really good book, that D6 book, and he talks about fast food Christianity. He talks about this idea, this concept of that, like sometimes we'll treat church just like a fast food place. Like I'm going to go there and I want to consume. Like I just go to church to consume instead of like going to church and being a part of the community, like being a part of one of my biggest, like sometimes I get really annoyed at some people because they'll be like, well, we switched churches because that church didn't offer, they didn't have a good youth ministry. I hear this one a lot, right? Well, we started coming to so-and-so, whatever church you're at, because you have a big youth group. And I'm like, so you made the youth group smaller at that other church to join a bigger youth group, So I think most people are like, well, aren't you supposed to be excited? Your youth group's growing. And I'm like, well, that's not growing. That's just church swapping.
Yeah.
That's not discipleship. That's just church swapping. And so yeah, I mean, it's cool to have new people, but I also feel bad, for churches who are like, oh, we just need young adults, but then young adults won't plug in because what they're searching for is searching for a community in which is going to give them something to consume, opposed to really being plugged in. There's a guy, Woodrow Wilson, and I have always been impressed by him. I met him while I was in Washington as a wee little youth minister, and it's such a little child. But I met him, and he is a military guy, and he told me, he said, well, me and my family, we always, wherever we get deployed, or wherever I'm stationed, I guess, not deployed, stationed, we find, a little church, and then we get involved. He said, we place membership. I said, I volunteer to do whatever I can to help, and then but it's like, we don't just show up and expect that church to be like, oh, let us take care of you. No, he says, I show up, and then we figure out ways that we can get involved and what we can bring and help. So not only is the church feeding us, but we are contributing and being a part of that group. And so, we're like in this bad mentality where it's like, well, the church didn't offer this, so I left. Have you ever thought about like if God is calling you then to be like, hey, well, I brought you to that church so that maybe you could fill that gap. Mm-hmm. Oh, this church doesn't have a college ministry. Start one. The church is built on volunteers. Yeah. It's built with people who are volunteering. That's what a deacon is. You can put yourself into a deacon role by just serving the church.
See a need and fill a need.
See a need, fill a need. That's right. And like we get, I don't know, like we're so busy with everything else that we're like, well, I just want to go to church events. I don't want to actually like help. And then on the flip side, we have some people who are getting burnt out because nobody else will step up and help, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody else will volunteer. So you have some who are like, some who have taught a child's class on Sunday morning for the last 4 years and hasn't been to an adult class because there's not enough volunteers to jump in and teach a children's class,
You
So
you mentioned...
Like people, like the church needs you.
You mentioned kids, right? Mm. I think there is, if we want to get to here's what I'm looking at that's kind of moved me down this path. Like we tried really hard as I raised my kids. I didn't want my kids to turn into typical preacher's kids. I didn't want them to resent the church because of the calling that I'd received. And so we gave them a lot of freedom when it came to church activities and things that they would choose. They didn't go to things because I was the preacher. They would go to things because we were a family that was a member of this church.
Right.
And sometimes they were there as members. Sometimes they were there because they felt obligated, but sometimes they were in other places as well. And they would go with their friends and do different things because I wanted them to choose, life in the body of Christ.
Right.
But one of the things I think that we have to do, and I'm seeing this with our college ministry, is there are a lot of members of the Church of Christ from other areas of Louisiana that are coming down to LSU. And I have my elders that are like, how come those kids aren't coming here to our thing? And it's like, well, because they moved away from home. And when they moved away from home, I'm not saying they're moving away from the church, but they don't necessarily see the need to be involved with the Church of Christ.
Right.
Maybe it's a little bit of rebellion. Maybe it's a little bit of, I'm going to go find my own way. Maybe it's a little bit of, I'm going to see what else is out there. And I think some of that stems from growing up as a youth. When do your youth get to feel valued in the assembly? On youth night, on LTC, demonstration night, when they get to show off like once or twice a year, or maybe once when the kids show up. But finding those ways that we can make I don't want to say make our kids feel valuable, but show them that they are valued.
Right.
And give them a place where, hey, can one of our youth lead singing? Can one of our youth come in and, lead a devotional? Can one of
just
our
lead the
kids
opening
come
song.
in and lead the opening song? Lead an
They
opening
don't have
prayer.
to lead the whole service.
Read the scripture. Is it going to be as good as our worship leader? Maybe not, but it might be also. But we're going to give them a place where they can use the gifts and talents they've been given to serve the church in that way and realize I have something to offer, that I'm not here just as to check a box or to show up because it's Sunday and this is what we do and I'll feel guilty if we don't. But I have something to offer that's going to help the church be what it needs to be. And I think that's how you build that connection with the body, so that when they go away, they realize, I don't have to go to church. I need to go to the church, and the church needs me to be a part of the body.
I think it starts from the top down too. Like us as ministers, we're expected to find people to mentor, right? I have young college students that people are like, hey, well, you should mentor them. Maybe they'd be helpful in the youth ministry and that kind of stuff. I think our elders need to mentor other young men and to say, hey, I'm going to do some shepherding. I'm going to do some home visits, but I'm going to go pick up a teenager, or I'm going to go pick up a college student, or I'm going to go pick up a 30-year-old man after he gets off work and teach him what it's like to be a shepherd, and then our deacons, need to do the same thing. That there needs to be this process of passing it off, or I'm going to take another family under my wing and we're going to go do some shepherding with that family, and that kind of stuff. It's this idea of like, how will anybody know what you do if you never train anybody in what you do? How do you not run into the problem of our elders are 85 years old and they're all going to die off, but we don't have anyone to kind of fill that role as elders? So now we need to start training elders. No, don't do that. Please don't do that. As a youth minister, please don't do that, because that's horrifying. Because then you have untrained elders who walk in and they're like, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to do it all this way, and it's not going to do anything. And you're like, no, what you really did is you took a big stick and you swirled everything up, and now this church is in chaos. So, like, why do we need to go to church? Why do we need to be involved? Well, we need these kind of things because we need you to step up. We need you to actually care. We need you to be involved with the climate and everything that's going on within the church. Leaders, you need to jump in there and teach other people how to do your job. I think, this is the tangent I'm getting off on is I used to be terrified. I used to be terrified to go on vacation because it'd be like, what if people found out that they could do what I could do without me being there? And then one of the elders reminded me, he said, Aaron, part of your job is to drain other people so that when you go on vacation, it's like you're not even gone.
You said train, not drain, right?
Train other people so that they, and it's the same thing for our elders. Like, we need to be training people in order to be elders. We need to be training people into these leadership roles. But it starts at a younger age. Like, it starts at a younger age. It starts, I'm trying to teach my teens how to teach a Bible class so that they can volunteer just as much as anybody else to teach, the children, and take a quarter to be able to do that. And so that they are involved. So hopefully they go off to college and they place membership at a church somewhere if they choose that part of their life, right? And they're like, well, can you teach Bible class? And they're like, well, actually, yeah, I did. I taught Bible class quite a bit at Pine Tree, so I can do that. We have to train other people, which means we have to involve other people. But then we also have to, on the flip side, this is what I'm getting at. This is how I bring it all together, is that you actually have to be involved and want to learn and be a part of your community, your church community.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, and maybe this is, for me at least, the behind the beards moment, is that's a hard place for me to get to.
Yeah. It's not a switch you can just turn on.
So when we came to the church here, we had a body that was wounded, that was hurting. They had been battered and bruised by a couple of just instances that transpired. And we came into a church that was really kind of closed and kind of like a puppy that's been abused. They don't want anybody to get too close.
Right.
And they're standoffish, and they had very little outward focus because they were in survival mode. And a church in survival mode doesn't engage its own people very well either. Mm-hmm. And so, for 7 years, if there was something that needed to be done, we were doing it. We were doing the youth work. We were doing the outreach work. We were organizing the just everything. It fell on us. If there was an activity that needed to be done, we did it. Well, a couple of years ago, we had a girl that come and said, hey, I want to take on the Fall Fest. And someone else said, I'm going to do the trunk or treat. And they just kind of take the bull by the horns and run with it. Just this past year, we got our campus ministry up and going. And at first, last year or 2 years ago, it was all Heather and I. We did the tailgates, we did the devotionals, we did the activities. They've been going for 3 months now, and I've been to one activity.
Wow.
LTC came around, and we had a group of ladies that came up and said, hey, we want to get this organized. Heather's our coordinator, but we're going to go ahead and have this meeting. We got information. We know you'll have things going on, but we're going to take this and get it started. And Heather asked me, as my wife, for those that are listening and may not know me, she's like, are we going to be involved again in the campus ministry? I'm like, well, if they need me, I will be.
That's right.
I said, the guys that run it know that I am here for anything they need, and if they need me, they'll let me know, and we'll be there. She's like, I don't know if I like that.
Right.
I was like, well, babe, for 7 years we've been looking for this, and now we're in a place where we actually have people going out and doing those things that we were always having to do in the past. And now we have the freedom to do other things that God has called us to do instead of things that have to be done. It shouldn't be a hard place for us to get to. But at least for me, it's a really hard thing to grasp when that transpires. But it's also hard for me to step back and see the big picture and realize this is good. This is the way the church is supposed to function, where people are coming together and they're using their own gifts and abilities for the betterment of the body,
right,
and for the advancement of the kingdom.
Absolutely.
And so we need to go to church because the church needs us.
That's right.
To show up and go to work.
It's part of our calling. It's part of our our interweaving of what Jesus wanted for Christians as a whole, is to be a part of a community, not Like it's sad to me that like some of these other communities have more relationship built in within than the church does. And it needs to be like this interweaving fabric of our lives, and it needs to be something that we search for and that we long for, kind of a thing.
Well, my goal is to get the younger generation of the church to grow up, and those young families to grow up, and when they have to miss being a part of the community of God's people, I don't want them to feel guilt.
Right.
I want them to feel like something's missing. I don't want them to look and go, "Oh man, I shouldn't have missed church today." I want them to look and go, "Man, it is really good when we're together with God's people," and I really hate missing that because I just feel like something's not right when I don't begin my week that way, or when I don't catch the middle of the week that way. And I think that's the biggest shift that we need to make, is recognizing that it's not out of guilt and shame that we do it. It's because we recognize the need to be a part of the body of Christ. So that's
Don't be a consumer.
Don't be a consumer.
Yeah. Hey, we want to thank you all for being here today. We want to appreciate you, and we want to remind you of Galatians chapter 6, verse 9. Do not grow weary in doing good. And we know, we understand, and we know, and we get weary as well, and we lean upon the strength and the power of Christ Jesus just as much as you do. And I hope even more, because God is good, right? But this world is messy and this life is messy. So allow Christ to use you to do something different, something good in His name. I'm Aaron, and that's Josh, and we'll see you next week on Behind the Beards.
Till we're all growing a beard. A man's face should never be bare. We just want some facial hair. We're anticipating, yeah, everyone's waiting for a beard.
Dude, I'm sweating in here.
Sweating.
I think my wife has the AC set on 78.
Yikes.
And I'm in the hottest room in the house.
78? No.
And I'm wearing a sweatshirt. During the day? Yeah, I think her program goes up to 78 during the day.
Mine goes up to 73 when I'm not here.
And it drops down to 75 at 5 p.m. and then down to 70 at 10 o'clock when we go to bed. It could be a sweatshirt.
It's gotta drop. It's gotta drop down to 70 at like 8 o'clock, so that at 10 o'clock I can go to sleep.
No, yeah, the sweatshirt's not helping, but it's chilly outside. I mean, it was like 50, 56 this morning, 58. So,
do you have to shave for football, Josh? Not this year.
Not this year. This year we have a new policy that we're trying out so that we can wear a cleanly groomed, or a nicely groomed beard. We were losing too many people. People weren't staying because they're like, "You got to shave." And they're like, "Oh, really? Nope, I'm out." So.
Yeah, no way, man. I'm out. All right, brother. I got to get going.
All right, man.